We will be starting the recall candidates debate in 16 minutes.
Professor, good to see you.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Am I, can you see me?
No, but you are live. The debate will start in 12 minutes, but just to let you know, you are live.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me go out and come back again. For some reason, the camera doesn't seem to be working.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Oh, hey, hello. Hey, oh.
We will be starting in a few minutes with the Yes California Recall Candidates debate for live July 4th. July 4th edition. Dr. Wade, I can see you trying to join in with another stream. It's not fully connecting. I'm going to have to remove one of the linkages. Okay, I'm going to remove this one. At least I can still hear your audio. The other stream is not linking, so I'm going to remove it. Okay, we're going to get started in 8 minutes. Oh, there it is. Okay. Professor Wade. I can see you. Can you hear us? Great. Okay. We can see you and hear you. We will be starting.
Oh, there I am. Great. Great.
Yep.
Yay.
We'll be starting in a few minutes. Professor Henning, can you hear us okay?
I'm just fine. My only difficulty is I could do all of this better if I could get on Safari, but I can't figure it out, so you're stuck with me the way I am.
Fair enough. We love you just the way you are.
Well, very few people say that.
We'll be starting in a few minutes. The debate will start live. We are live now, but the event does not start for 7 more minutes. Special July 4th themed recall debate. I'll be back in a few minutes. And we are not starting for a few more minutes. We will be starting at 1. Ugh. We will be starting in 4 minutes with our special July 4th themed debate. Just a few more minutes, starting in 3 minutes live. Candidate Shore.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Professor Hannock, Professor Wade. So we have so many professors here. I am honored.
And elected officials.
Yes, well, as an elected official, it's my obligation to do it because you're the taxpayers. I should be here. I shouldn't even have a choice. As an elected official, it's my privilege to be here. It's my obligation because you're the taxpayer. I work for you. And so I just hope other elected officials know that and they would participate and say yes to California.
So we haven't started yet. This is just casual talk at the moment.
You know what's funny? I think, at least for me, I don't know about the other candidates here, but do they dream and campaign in their head when they're asleep? Maybe that's just me.
I got some good stuff for you guys. It's going to be an interesting debate.
Okay.
We're going to do something a little bit different, and I think is going to...
Well, you got two professors, a librarian. Marcus, can you stand with me?
I can handle the heat. Yeah.
Two professors and a librarian, What's the weather up there, up north?
In Fresno, it's in the hundreds.
That's what
It's
I've heard.
getting a little warm. The only way I can handle it is I'm a valley boy. You grow up in it, you don't know better. So you get used to, oh, it's 100 degrees. Oh, it's 95. How nice. Right? And you're like, hey, it's not 100. It's only 95. You're like, great. And only valley people would say that. So
Right.
only we would be like, yeah, 95. Hey. So that is, I'm a valley boy. Okay. We have just about 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Candidates, Professor Wade, Professor Hannock, elected official Fuji Shura, and Louis Marinelli are here. Let's go to comments real quick. We'll be starting in just a minute. 75 here in Marin. That's nice. Great. Thank you. So, I'm just saying. So, okay, we're going to start here. Wow, what a nice backdrop and podium. All right, let me go to the commercial. We'll come out of the commercial, want to start on time. I'll explain what the format is. Everybody will follow along, and everybody's be given fair time to answer the controversial questions we have lined up for you. These are going to be a little bit different. This is a special July 4th episode. Not all the candidates were able to be here because it's a holiday. We respect that, but we also are dedicated to performance here at Yes California. We believe it's important to keep meetings on time every week at the exact same time so that people know that you're an institution. And we are proud to do that, and we're proud to be here on July 4th. And we have some nice questions and some really controversial, tough questions for all the candidates that they're going to struggle to answer, coming direct from recent news. So watch, because you're going to see some fireworks today on July 4th. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the Yes California Recall Candidates Debate, a series of debates with 2/3 of all declared candidates for the California election coming up who've been involved or have expressed interest. We are proud to be the only organization in all of California amongst all government agencies, nonprofits, think tanks, universities, and social movements to actually be dedicated to hosting a series of debates so that you, the voter, can see who your fellow Californians are, citizens wanting to participate in democracy. We've held about 8 of these panels. 99% of all candidates have said that we were fair and that there was no other place for them to go to for the voters to learn about them. We are proud to provide this public service to the people of California. We think it's important for you to not like the recall, not oppose the recall, but to make up your own mind. Thank you for letting us be able to provide this information to you and make sure that it's factually based. And thank you for all the candidates for recognizing the hard work that we've done and that we've been able to provide that. So let's get right to it. Today is July 4th. So we're going to frame the questions a little bit differently because we knew not all the candidates would be able to be here, but for those that showed up, we want to do a special treat showing how they feel about being an American and what being an American means to them. We'll start with introductory statements per candidate, as we always do. 1.5 minutes per candidate. You can explain yourself, your candidacy, or you can impregnate the question, as they say, and start to address what being an American means to you, although you will be asked that in a short while. So I'm just going to, since there's 4 candidates, I'm going to go in order as they appear on the screen. I had no ability to control that. It's not the full random check we do, but I think it's pretty random. So it's going to be Frank, James, Lewis, Fuji. Frank, James, Lewis, Fuji, Frank, James, Lewis, Fuji. Because that's the way that you appeared on my screen, and I had basically it was the order they came in. So totally random, in no way is it biased or showing favoritism to any of the candidates. Frank Henry Wade. In 1.5 minutes, let me unmute you. Let me make sure you're unmuted first. In 1.5 minutes, Professor Wade, how would you describe yourself?
Yes, well, I have to tell you my background. I'm from San Francisco. I have a doctorate from Golden Gate in business administration, and I have the CPA and all the other accounting qualifications, the CIA, the CMA, the CISA. I have 40 years of experience in mostly overseas, different companies and different institutions as an executive. And then I have 10 years of experience teaching, mostly in Muslim countries overseas. In my professional career, I got an award by USAI as a foreign service officer for work I did in the anti-apartheid movement. I lost my visa months ago. That's why I'm back. I'm driving a cab now, trying to get back into a university, mostly in a Muslim country. So this leaves me available to become governor also. People like me do not enter politics. We're very content to be in business or in university. So this is a chance of a lifetime for the state of California. This is my one time only policy of entering public life. So I really feel that it's necessary to solve all the problems that were created by this current governor. That's why I'm running for.
Sorry, in order to be fair to all candidates, make sure that we have enough time. I have to keep candidates on schedule. I apologize. Each candidate gets 1.5 minutes. Professor Hennig, in 1.5 minutes, how would you represent yourself to 40 million people? Professor James Hennig.
My name is Jim Hanning. I'm running for governor to advance the platform of the American Solidarity Party. Our party is real, it's growing, it's pro-life for the whole of life. We're neither conservative nor liberal, neither capitalist nor socialist. Our party is progressive in the best sense. We want to make progress toward a common good built on solidarity, subsidiarity, and economic democracy. I'm not a politician, but I have experience. For the past 45 years, I've been a California resident. It's a state that once reflected the American dream and now exports a primal scream. I taught philosophy for 40 years at Loyola Marymount University. Of late, I've been hosting the Open Door weekly podcast and blogging for the New Oxford Review. Follow my campaign. You won't find slick mailers or see TV adverts, nor will there be any pandering to identity politics. My one and only constituency is the human person, wherever he or she lives in this conflicted state. One promise, today's political talk is dumbed down. I'll avoid such nonsense and call out those who contribute to it.
Thank you. Make sure you're unmuted. Candidate Louis Marinelli, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Marcus. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Louis Marinelli. I'm a candidate for California governor running on a very simple idea. That idea is to improve the quality of life of the people of California. It is to reduce the cost of living for the people of California. And there are a number of ways that we can achieve that goal, but the main idea of it is to make California an independent country. Now, some people out there say that that's unconstitutional, impossible, but my campaign exists to change that idea, to inform and educate the public that it is constitutional, that there is Supreme Court precedent that lays down the path for how a state can become its own independent country, and to lay down the idea that we can do this both legally and peacefully. If we look at American history, we had an attempt by several states in our history to leave the Union, and it led to a civil war. But it did not lead to a civil war because the people of the states voted to secede from the Union. Indeed, the people of those states voted to secede from the Union, and several months went by without war. What led to the Civil War was the Southern attack on the Northern Army. When we vote in California to secede from the Union, which is what my campaign is about, to become governor and put a referendum before the people, we will not, of course, attack the United States military. The Americans are our brothers and sisters. We're not looking to start a war with them. We're just looking to get out of the dysfunctional household that is the United States of America. And my campaign for governor is to become governor and put a referendum for the people.
I apologize again, trying to fit everybody in best we can. Candidate Fuji Shura, 1.5 minutes to you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Fuji. Family, unity, justice, integrity. I'm your pro-life candidate, and I'm the elected official here on the 4th of July, 2021. And I want to thank Professor Frank Henry Wade and Professor James G. Hannock and fellow candidate Louis Marinelli for being here. And I am privileged to be here once again with all these candidates. And I am here to really debate the important issues of the time. As California governor, I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to debate with my fellow candidates. Visit my campaign website, www.governor.life, and let's do what's right for the voters. As an elected official, let's have the elected officials stop talking and listen to the taxpayers and the people of California like Louis, Frank, and James. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of the candidates for being flexible. I apologize ahead of time, just trying to keep everybody a fair amount of time so that it's appeared fair by all candidates. Thank you for being understanding. So we're going to go right to the easy questions before we get into the big, tough, controversial ones. In 1.5 minutes, open-ended question. What does being an American mean? How do you define that? How do you think other people should see that? What does that mean? Same thing. In the same order, we're going to go to Professor Frank. In 1.5 minutes, let me unmute you. You are unmuted. Frank,
Right.
how would you define being an American?
Yes. Well, I've spent a lot of career over, and I'm proud to be from the United States. We have an image of being the most democratic country in the world, and also the country that helps other countries. Just to give you an example, with South Africa, it was America's intervention with the anti-apartheid legislation that led to the release of Mandela after 27 years in prison, and that paved the way for democracy in South Africa. The people of South Africa owe us for helping them. And this is true to the countries of Europe in World War II, when we liberated Europe from the fascist regimes. And basically, we also liberated the Soviet countries from communism. So we're basically the police of the world, and we've done so much, and I'm proud to represent this when I've been working abroad and also when I've been teaching abroad. For the last 10 years, I have basically taught in Muslim countries, and it's my effort to show the people in the Muslim countries that Americans are very nice people, and we're very liberal. We try to be fair to everyone, and in this way. And I'm not the only American that's teaching Muslim countries. Many people do, and
Thank you.
we try to show the.
I apologize. Just to be fair, because we have a fair amount of questions, minute and a half per candidate. Please be cognizant. James, what does being an American mean to you?
It means living in a country that is a work in progress. Our ideals are not false, but they haven't been realized. Our history matters. It helps to hold us together, it helps to shape our understanding, and it points us to our future. In looking at history, we need to be aware of our second founding. A century before Mayflower, Madison and Jefferson, beginning in the 1500s, missionaries from Spain and France preached the good news of the gospel to indigenous people from Georgia and Florida to Texas and Baja California, from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Doing so, they pioneered interculturalism. They sometimes fail, as do we, but they aim for harmony, not empire, and for service, not dominance. Doing so, they gave witness to an authentic American spirit that honors the human person. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of the American creed. We are endowed by God with sacred dignity and the rights of life, liberty, and equality before the law. California flourishes when it lives out the American creed.
Thank you. Candidate Louis Marinelli, what does being an American mean for you?
Well, I think that being American for me is about being a citizen in the country that made secession cool in the most recent history of the planet, basically. Americans started the idea of secession, really. If you talk about the original 13 colonies, they wanted to leave the British Empire. They tried to do it peacefully by requesting that the king let the colonies be independent. They were denied. And then they decided that they needed to take another course of action to pursue their independence. And so we live in a country, the United States of America, where we are free as citizens to espouse these ideas of seceding from the Union. 1776 wasn't the first time. The Civil War wasn't the last time. We have secession movements in this country from California, a progressive-leaning group in California, which I represent as candidate for governor, to Texas, which is more of a conservative group, New Hampshire, Alaska, Hawaii. There are secession movements in virtually every state in this country because secession is an American value. America was started because of secession. And so what an American means to me is to be a citizen of a country where secession is a part of being a citizen and supporting that idea and the right of secession is a part of being an American. And so that's what I say Americanism is for me as a citizen. However, there are many aspects of American culture and political apparatus that I do not support, which is why we in California want to secede from the Union. Americanism for me represents imperialism, for example. And I'll get into more of that later on in this debate.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Shiora, thank you all for being flexible. Really appreciate it. Candidate Shiora, what does being an American mean to you? In a minute and a half. Candidate Shiora.
Yes, thank you, Marcus. For me, what being an American, what is it? It means really serving my fellow neighbors, family, community, as best as I can. I'm proud to be the son of an immigrant. You know, my father came from Japan. I was born in San Diego. I'm a native Californian. And so being a public servant, giving back is what's important to me. Being an American is about making sure that we remain a representative form of government, a representative form of democracy, to ensure unconditional transparency, legally enforceable accountability, and genuine public accessibility to elected officials, and vice versa for voters to our government institutions. I am now more compelled than ever to run for public office. And I feel being American is to serve the public, to serve our community, to serve our environment, to serve our children, to build our schools. So it's about giving in so many ways. And also to be an American, for me, it means about doing what's right. And that one way to do it is to promote peace and prosperity by responsibility. So this is where I stand. My name is Fuji. Family, unity, justice, integrity. So being an American is about family, unity, justice, integrity. So that's what it is. And it's about inclusion. It's about tolerance. It's about getting the work done necessary so we can all live together in peace and harmony. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we got another open-ended question, but we have some very spicy questions coming up. As my abuelita used to say, con chile, meaning hot. Professor Frank Henry Wade, what does July 4th mean to you in a minute and a half?
Right. Well, July the 4th is the date that the independence was signed, but my own background, living in foreign countries, especially in the UK, I lived in the UK for 1 year, and in Southern and East Africa, which is heavily British. Do I still have a connection?
Yes, sir. You have a minute?
Yes.
Left,
okay, fine. The UK is heavily British. I'm actually embarrassed by July the 4th. I think we can celebrate our democracy without emphasizing the war we had with England, because we became allies with England in both world wars, and of course in the recent conflict in Afghanistan and Iraq, the British have fought alongside of us. So we should de-emphasize the July as something to celebrate, but we can celebrate our democracy in other ways. I really don't know if another holiday would be useful, but I don't like the idea of talking about the British did this and the British did that. When I was in Kenya, they did the same thing. Britain has contributed a lot to the Kenyan culture, to their history, and it's a mixed bag. When I was in Lesotho, Botswana, and Swaziland working, they said that they were given the royal boot by the British. They didn't want the British to leave because they needed more roads and more infrastructure. So it's a mixed bag. We could have been better off staying with England. There's our history. So we must abide with it. But
okay. Again, I apologize. Got a lot of questions, a lot of candidates, trying to make sure everybody gets the same amount of time. Let me do this again. James, what does July 4th mean to you? Sir.
America, as I mentioned, is a work in progress. July 4th celebrates a work in progress. Long before the Civil War, Frederick Douglass reflected on July 4th. And he said it's a celebration for some, but for many it's not. And yet he ended that speech on a kind of a positive note. He said he saw signs that things could be different, and things can be different. They won't be different if we leave July 4th to function as a kind of holiday of civil religion, marked especially by the liturgy of fireworks. That won't do it. We need a whole lot more than that, and I think we could provide a whole lot more than that. It's a good time for relaxing, but it's a good time for thinking through what direction we want to go. I don't think we want to go in the direction that we've been going of late.
Thank you. Candidate Marinelli, what does July 4th mean to you?
Well, July 4th is a fake holiday, in my view, because it's centered around the idea that on this day there was some great meeting of all the colonists, and they came and they signed the Declaration of Independence in some great event. They were all together, like the pictures show us, but that's not what happened. Some people may have signed it on July 4th, but there were people and supporters of independence who rolled in on their carriages several weeks later and signed the Declaration of Independence. So I think it's a fake holiday. It's represented in a fake way, as in I described. It's described in some way that some big moment in American history when all the colonists assembled in the new American capital and signed the Declaration of Independence. So from that context, I think it's fine to celebrate American independence for the Americans to do that. I mean, every country virtually who sought and won their independence has the right to celebrate that. And there are many things that American independence brought to the world that we can applaud and praise, you know. But there's also, like I think the professor was talking about, a mixed bag when it comes to American independence. What does that mean for the people of the world? And so I think that July 4th is a day for us to, or should be anyway, a day for us to honor our rights and to stand up and remember our rights, our Declaration of Independence, our Bill of Rights, and our Constitution, which unfortunately in this day and age is in large respect just a document that the federal government ignores. And so that's why this campaign, my campaign, exists, because we live in a post-constitutional era in the United States where the Constitution is not much more than a document with words on it. It is not a document that to which we adhere to, at least at the federal level. And I think that it's time for California to secede from the United States and create our own constitution for a future for California as an independent country.
Thank you. Thank you. Fuji, what does July 4th mean?
July 4th means for me, some, as it should be, but also for me as an elected official, it is one way to save our representative from democracy. To me, July is the future of what I would like to see in all major elections in the future, that the first week of July, that for 7 days, we have a chance to get to vote. Public transportation will be free. People have time off from work and school to actually go and vote. I believe if we make the 1st of July, the entire week, the 1st of July, the week of voting, in major elections, for senator, for governor, for president, even for local school board, we could really be part of democracy. 1st of July will be our savior for our representative form of democracy. So it's not just about the Declaration of Independence, which is near and dear to all of us, but also it is a time to really rethink how can we celebrate our independence, our Declaration of Independence. And one way to do that is to let's use the first week of 4th of July to really build a representative form of democracy, allowing 7 days to vote, public transportation free, time off from school, and work to give as much time possible for all candidates to campaign, and also to have all voters get out there to vote for the candidates of their choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to our first difficult question. It's July 4th, time to celebrate America. I'm going to show you two key facts that have come out recently, and then I will ask you for your opinion on what this means given July 4th. Let me mute everybody just to make sure. Okay. I'm going to share screen, but I will come back after I share the screen. It's important for me to show that. So let's go share screen. Here's the first one. So this came out recently from the Daily Mail. I believe it was today or yesterday, July 3rd. I'm embarrassed to be an American. Shocking campus video from Georgetown sees students struggle to articulate pride in the United States on July 4th. Now, Georgetown University is the top school that politicians and people who run the federal government come from. It typically trains them to run the federal government. So this is not just some average school. This is the top school. Lots of people coming from here to run into the federal government. And they struggled to find any students saying they were proud to be an American yesterday. Here's another piece. This is from July 4th, 2020, after Biden was elected, or chosen to be elected, I believe. But this is just last year. The Gallup has been doing polls since 2001, basically 20 years. And they're showing pride in the U.S. is the lowest it's been over the last 2 decades. Given that we have university students at one of the top universities that feed students into the federal government saying they're not proud to be an American or struggle to find that, and that the Gallup is saying that there is the lowest amount of pride in being an American in 20 years, why should someone be proud to be an American? The question goes to Frank in a minute and a half. Frank, why should people be proud to be an American given the statistics that we just saw?
Well, we have a great history of helping other countries. South Africa is, just to reiterate that, South Africa would not be a democracy without our anti-apartheid legislation, which prompted the release of Mandela. We threatened to withhold airline landing rights. That was the big clincher that caused the South African government to respond and allow Mandela to be unbanned, and so that led to a democracy. We also liberated Europe. We liberated countries of the Soviet Union. We've done a tremendous amount of good in the world. We've done some things wrong. This is our mistake, like in Vietnam, but I think the intention was to do good, and I think we are the policemen of the world. We're trying to make the world democratic and to be safe from tyrants and dictatorships. So we're to be proud of the things that we have accomplished. And that the big thing that I note is that many foreigners in all the foreign countries that I've worked in, they all want to come to America because we have predictability in our legal institutions and opportunity economically. And this isn't true of all countries. So we have a tremendous amount to be proud of, and the people that say they're not proud, they don't have the depth of experience in other countries to understand what they're talking about.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to James. James, given the information that we saw recently, reputable polls and top university students over the last 2 years indicating trouble being proud of an American, why should people be proud to be an American, in your words?
Well, I'm not proud to be an American because America is a shining city on a hill. I don't think it is. I'm not proud to be an American because I accept American exceptionalism. I think we are one country among others, and all of us together must seek a world order of peace and justice. And I'm not proud to be an American because somehow I believe that individualism, whether rugged or expressive, is the greatest of ideals. I am proud to be an American, though, because we do have a sense of our history. We have a critical understanding of our history. Our critical understanding is deepening. And I think we're catching ourselves in this current period before we make some terrible mistakes. I looked at Georgetown as one example. Georgetown might be a prestigious university for people who are interested in going into politics. It used to be a prestigious university because it upheld the ideals of a liberal arts education, founded really in the Jesuit tradition. That tradition has been eroded. And in fact, Georgetown is in many ways a symbol of what happens when elite people lose the fundamental foundation of the American experience, to wit, the American dream. I think that if we substitute secular idols, we'll go nowhere fast, except maybe backwards.
Thank you. Candidate Marinelli. Same question. Let me make sure you're unmuted. You are unmuted. Candidate Marinelli.
Sure, thank you. I think that the key thing here is I think the viewers will be able to notice is I may be, no insult, no offense to anybody, I may be the youngest person on the screen. So my answer is going to, I think, be different from some of the other candidates' answers because there's a significant, I think, generational gap when you come to answering this question. If you're from an earlier time period, you were born, earlier than me, for example, you have many things that you may have witnessed in your lives for which you may be proud to be American. My grandfather, for example, my father, my mother may have seen or witnessed things that happened in their lives for which they could be proud to be American. We have, for example, a history of helping defeat the Nazis in World War II. Now, that's something that, older generations can be proud of. Older than that, we established national parks. We had the lunar landing in '69. So American history is ripe with things to be proud of. But I was born in 1986, and I find it difficult to think of something specific for which I should be proud to be American that happened in my lifetime that I can remember. If you talk about the things that happened since I was born, we had the Gulf War, we had the war in Serbia, Bosnia, we had the war in Afghanistan, we had the war in Iraq, we've had we're still just getting out of Afghanistan now. So the point is that I'm not really sure what I could point to, something that happened specifically in my lifetime. And I'm not 18 years old, I'm 35, so it's I'm an adult. That for which I should be proud to be American. So I find it difficult to answer that question. But even if you look at the
Sorry, thank you. We're going to go to candidate Fuji. Let me make sure you're unmuted. Apologize. Thank you, everybody. We're trying to get to a lot of questions, a lot of candidates. Thank you very much. Fuji Shiora, given the information that we saw recently, why should people be proud?
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, fellow candidates. We should all be proud Americans today. In all places, in the state of California, to do what we're doing today, to run in the election, to run as governor, to run. And yes, our talent. This is definitely not being. America is indeed a work in progress, and sometimes we don't get everything right. The United States has done so much humanity in the world and so much wrong. The good we have done has far outweighed any that we have. And this continues to make the planet of those and I believe freedom of the press.
You may want to speak closer to the phone.
Yes, I believe in a representative form of government, freedom of the press, and having a a creativity that only California can have, and here in the United States of America has held us to be proud of, be it faculty or entertainment creativity, and all the debates that we have this opportunity to now have this wonderful. And yet, our democracy, is a person, and we got to put that other thing. However, I'm very proud. I'm very proud that we have an opportunity to run for elected office. I'm also very proud that we have a free press, although this might be under opinionated and some people may say otherwise. So yes, not a work in progress, but it's a work in progress. That's why I'm proud. We're still growing and learning. We're a new country. We haven't been around for 700 years. I came out of the state. So I'm to be in America. I'm very blessed to be here with my fellow candidates. And thank our veterans and our law enforcement and our members out there doing every day, making this a great state. So I'm just very proud to have the opportunity as an elected official to be able to run again for elected office.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Marinelli, did you want to make an additional comment? If so, we're going to give everyone an additional 1 minute.
Okay, sure. I'll just finish what I was saying. I mean, I was going to say that
Yes.
Everybody knows that I'm the leader and one of the founders of the Calixit movement. So certainly I'm not going to have the most positive opinion of what it means to be an American and what there's proud to be an American. But, I can see that, older generations may have something for which they can be proud. But even that is a mixed bag. I mean, if I mentioned, for example, the lunar landing and the national parks from the earlier part of the 1900s. And I mentioned, helping defeat the Nazis in World War II. Those are great things for which Americans of those generations could be proud of. But the same people can also not be proud of, for example, the Vietnam War, slavery, internment camps, Jim Crow laws, dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So American history is ripe with many events, and some of them are worthy of pride, but I think personally that most of them are not. And that includes, and is particularly true for people that were born around the time period that I was born, in the mid-1980s. People that were born after the 1980s, even after the 1970s, I don't think, have much to be proud of when it comes about being an American, except for, some of the things that people of other countries have the same reasons to be proud of. The idea that America is, for example, the only free country in the world is false. People in Canada are free. People in France are free. So they're proud of their freedom too. So we need to, I think, examine the issue of why are we proud to be Americans? Not why are we proud to be free, for example, because many people around the world are free. And I think it's a difficult question to answer if you're someone from my generation.
Thank you. Okay, an additional 1.5 minutes to each candidate, starting with Frank. An additional 1.5 minutes on the question. You can say whatever you like or address what the other candidate said. Professor Wade, 1.5 minutes on additional commentary.
Yes. Well, I think Americans have to be proud of our history. As I said, we have been the good guys in history. We helped Europe out to be liberated from the fascist dictatorships. I think I'm losing a connection here. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can. Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, I continue. We were free. We helped free Europe from fascist dictatorship. We helped liberate the Soviet bloc countries from communism. And the one situation that I was involved in South Africa, I can tell you that America made a big difference in our intervention in South Africa to end apartheid. We're to be congratulated for this. In every case, we try to do the best thing. We do make mistakes. Notably, the Iraqi war could have been handled differently. Our invasion of Afghanistan could have been handled differently, but we were doing the right thing in principle. That the Taliban is an awful government, a very evil government. We shouldn't allow it to continue. The regime of Saddam Hussein was wrong, and we always we always fight on the side of democracy and for freedom for people, in order to everyone in the world can enjoy the freedoms that we have. Now,
Thank you.
I've lived in many foreign countries. They all
Thank
want to
you.
come.
Sorry, have to be fair to all candidates. We're going to go to James. James, an additional minute and a half on the topic. You can cover additional points you'd like to make, or you can respond to what the other candidates said. James, in an additional minute and a half, sir.
Yes, I don't think that the United States is the greatest state in the world. I don't think it's any greater than, say, Canada. And within the United States, I don't think that California is the greatest state. I think that in each of these cases, the United States, Canada, say, California, we labor in vain unless the Lord builds the city. Now, a secular society, it seems to me that a Lord worthy of worship is truth, goodness, beauty. And insofar as a community forms itself to promote the truth, to promote goodness, to promote beauty, then I think that city is laboring as it should labor. That country is laboring as it should labor. And our direction in general should be towards building up the common good of who? Everyone within the city, everyone within the country. And that common good means that everyone have the means necessary to provide themselves with the basic goods of life, and that no one is excluded. Right now, the most grievous and most denied exclusion is the exclusion of the preborn. We have an abortion massacre, and it's not polite even to mention it.
Thank you. Thank you. Fuji, an additional minute and a half. You are unmuted.
Going back to what I stated, yes, hello everybody. I believe we are accepted. We help invent the enemy. We on the verge of creating quantum computing. We're doing so much from the spirit and the fields of science, and yet we do have to confront the difficulties. I am a pro-life candidate. There's so much work to be done, and even in this election, as you know, with the special recall challenges that all of us here, that there's a form of voter suppression going on, in my opinion and review. So we are the most wonderful, amazing country in the world, and I really believe that's because our diversity, our differences of opinion, our racial differences, but because of our diversity is what makes us the greatest place, greatest country. There's no other country in the world, and I'm very grateful. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the second tough question now. 1 second. I'm trying to. Give me 1 second. Okay. For some reason I apologize. The controls today are not very responsive. So here's the next tough question for everybody. So in January 2021, the Public Policy Institute of California conducted a statewide survey of likely voters. The PPIC is the preeminent go-to survey organization for the California government. Its surveys are the most professional and the most looked at by all Californians who run the government. In January, of likely voters, they asked, which of these statements comes closer to your point of view? The country will be able to unite behind Joe Biden, who will be able to accomplish a lot, or the country will be divided and it will not, and it will be hard for Joe Biden to accomplish a lot. 59% of likely California voters said America will continue to be divided. In March 2021, they asked voters again. These days, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic that Americans of different political views can come together and work out their difference? 56% of California voters said they had little faith that America would come together. That's almost 2/3 of California likely voters saying America will not come together and there will not be a healing of people across the political divide. 1 second, stop sharing, go here. Almost one more thing I need to show you. So recently, Henry Winkler, the Fonz from Happy Days, tweeted out that we all need to come together as Americans, and only a cataclysmic event can bring the U.S. together. He was widely laughed at for saying that. What happened was people who were liberals and conservatives said there was COVID, there was the Iraq War, there was the housing collapse. None of that brought anyone together. And in fact, the splitting apart of people only got worse. So when we look at these two instances of likely California voters saying they have 2/3 no faith in people coming together across political divides, and 2/3 saying they don't think America will unite, and a popular star saying, hey, let's unite, and being widely laughed at and condemned across America recently, what hope do we have for the United States of America coming together and all of us rejoicing as common Americans? First up will be Professor Frank Henry Wade. Professor, you are, I'm trying to unmute you. You are a minute and a half. How would you respond, Professor? Professor
Yes.
Frank Henry Wade.
Well, my reaction to that is yes. My reaction to that is a lot of our division is due to Trump, President Trump, former President Trump, not accepting the decision of the voters in the 2020 election. He's actually fomented division within the country. And for him to be corrected either through a court case that can put him away, or for him to reconcile him to the Democrats that won the election, would be a big help to stopping the division within our society. But I don't see it as something that's serious that could lead to civil war. I think we've always had differences between the Republicans and the Democrats. So I look forward to having Republican leaders that are more reconciliatory than Trump, to bring the friction between the two groups and have our society more amiable. But I believe it's just a recent condition. The attitude of Trump is very unfair, and this ultimately will be corrected through his own through the internal mechanisms of the Republican Party, or court cases that will punish Trump. So I have an optimistic view for the future.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to James. James, in under 2 minutes, your response, sir.
Tricky business. I think we have a great deal of division. I think in the last, say, 6-7 years, it's been measurably worse than in the past. But I think it's always been very badly divided in this country. I think across the world it's badly divided, perhaps in many countries worse than it is here. Try Ethiopia, try Myanmar, try Thailand, try Spain. I think that's pretty much par for the course. A lot of this division is manipulated by the press and people who have special interests. On the other hand, a lot of the division is simply a result of apathy. Incredibly, Governor Newsom is suing the Secretary of State because his affiliation, his party affiliation, is going to be left off on the ballot. Commentator said, the level of political information and engagement in this state is deplorable. What? They don't even know who the governor is or what party he belongs to. Now, as for the Fonz, once upon a time, the Fonz was the commencement speaker for Loyola Marymount University, where I taught for so many years. That's all part of the celebrity culture. Frankly, I'd like to see every celebrity that wants to opine on serious political matters first pay a special fee. We don't need to hear from them very much, and certainly not unless they pay their dues.
Okay. Louis Marinelli.
Well, I think that the country is certainly divided, and I don't think it is the result of Donald Trump. I think that, like many Americans do, I think that Donald Trump is or was the symptom of American problem, not the actual problem itself. Donald Trump was elected because we have problems in our society that allowed someone with his message to become popular. That is indicative of the fact that we had problems before Donald Trump. So I categorically reject the idea that our problems resulted from Donald Trump. That's just, I think, a lazy answer. I mean, you can even look at the fact that, look at the impeachment history of the United States. I mean, we have the impeachment of Donald Trump 2 times. I think the second time happened within a week before he was to leave office. That's just, ridiculous. It's indicative of the fact that this country is divided. Now, before Donald Trump, we had impeachment attempts as well, but the impeachment frequency of impeachment of attempts of American presidents is a relatively new phenomenon in American politics because it was a relatively rare tool used in extreme and significant cases in American history when there was or were crimes committed. But now it's relatively used as a political tool. Look at the fact that on January 21st of this year, they tried to impeach Joe Biden on the first day of his presidency. They tried to impeach and remove from office Donald Trump 2 times. Before that, you had an attempt to remove Barack Obama and George H.W. Bush. But before Reagan, before Nixon, it was relatively a rare occasion to have a presidential impeachment process. So that just is indicative of the fact that this country has moved more and more in the direction of political partisanship. And the polls have shown that this country is more divided now than any time since about the American Civil War. We've seen that in poll after poll, especially from Gallup, who measures political divisiveness in the country. And I think that this is not something we're going to get away from. I think that the country is going to get more and more divided. It's time for us to have a national divorce and a peaceful separation to keep the peace in North America. Because if we don't, then things are going to get messy. They're going to get worse before they get better. That's why this campaign exists. Let's begin the process of a national divorce, a peaceful separation from the other states of this union.
Thank you. Candidate Fuji Shiora, response.
Thank you. I'm very optimistic. I believe in a better tomorrow. That's why I'm an elected official. And I do believe if we get new candidates in elected office at every level, local, county, and state, new people, not career politicians, that yes, we can use. But if the same career politicians, be a Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or whatever party it may be, that we will not become united. It will become more divided. I'm in the city of San Diego County. If I talk to some of our brave women and men in uniform, they do not believe America is united. They're concerned. The division is real. A few of them even talked about California becoming a country. These are people in our military. They brought it up. They're very serious and they're in their 20s. And it's just, we are very divided. There's a lot of work ahead of us. And I would like to say to Professor, I would highly recommend it if we could somehow get more debates like this going to encourage the young people like at Loyola Marymount. I would love to have this debate in person. These kids, college kids, need to see the candidates in person. And I would love to have Yes California do a debate like this at Marymount Loyola University. Because as you know in Catholic teaching, my mother was Catholic, that some of the biggest falls in human events in history was arrogance and ignorance. All political parties are showing a huge amount of arrogance and ignorance. and that could lead to civil war, which I do not want. And so now is the time to really get young people engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any candidate want to react to what the other candidates say or have additional commentary on this issue they would like to cover?
Yes, may I?
Yes, as long as you recognize, take as much time as you want. I'm going to give the same amount of time to everyone else. Fuji Shira.
I would like to propose to Professor Hanek, formerly of Marymount Loyola University, sir, if somehow you could arrange an in-person debate like this with Jeff California at the campus in Los Angeles. I was wondering if that is a possibility. I'm asking you as a candidate, I'm asking you as an elected official, that I am terrified. The country is divided. I've heard it as an elected official from other elected officials, and I heard it from young voters. So there's my sir, Professor. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll give an additional minute response to every candidate. Professor James Hanek, you are unmuted.
Fuji, I think that would be wonderful, but here's why it's impossible. Loyola Marymount University is fundamentally a business venture. As a business venture, it's mostly interested in collecting tuition, keeping faculty happy, and living up to the expectations of the Silicon Beach. Just recently, the Democrats for Life, which is a halfway decent organization, tried to have their national convention there. It didn't work out. It could have worked out, but the administration is first and foremost interested in public relations. Now, if you could speak to the public relations department using a golden tongue and show them how it might generate some good PR and more money from Silicon Beach, you might get somewhere. Current president, last president, one president back of Loyola Marymount University, I personally asked to resign on 3 different occasions because I thought he aided and abetted the collapse of what could be a significant institution. It's not. Like many of the institutions here in California, it's made out of paper mache.
Okay. We
All
will
right.
now-
Can I say something to our international audience? Could we explain the difference between Silicon Beach and Silicon Valley? Just for our international audience, please.
Well, Silicon Valley's up north. Silicon Beach is the highest thing that Southern California could aspire to, namely its own second-rate version of the Silicon Valley, which itself is fundamentally a profit-based organization and value neutral unless it has to do with making more money. American Solidarity Party would want to break it up into about 15 components. We're trust busters, and that's where we have trusts in control.
Okay, to be fair to the other candidates, Frank and Marinelli, we're going to give them each an additional 2 minutes to respond. We'll go in the order that we traditionally did. We're going to go to Frank, an additional 2 minutes to respond, and then Marinelli, an additional 2 minutes to respond. Professor Frank, an additional 2 minutes to respond in any way that you would like, or to the candidates and their previous statements you've heard.
Yes. Well, I agree that it would be great to have discussions in universities, not necessarily Loyola, but discussions in general. The big point that I want to make is that the students don't understand the benefits of this country unless they have been abroad living and working to see the great benefits of the United States in our institutions, which are predictable, and our economic situation where we don't have restraints on what people can do, the opportunity they can have. Many other countries are similar to us in both the democracy that we have, the predictability of our institutions, and the economic opportunity, but seldom do we have both together. In other words, we have an independent and predictable court system in which we can take civil suits and or criminal issues before, and then we have economic possibilities. So we really have a country where everyone wants to come here to live because of these benefits, and the students don't really see that until they've been abroad to understand how popular the United States is in different countries, and how other countries deprive you of these freedoms and deprive you of these opportunities. One thing I just have to indicate, though, Mr. Martinelli, who stated several questions before that the federal government invaded the South. No, this wasn't the case. That Abraham Lincoln wanted to take the South back almost immediately. The attack on Fort Sumter did not provoke the Union into war. The Union was preparing for war to take back the southern states long before that. Just as an indication of Fort Sumter, under the Bay Bridge is a duplicate fort called Fort Point. It was built with the plans of Fort Sumter. It's a very insignificant piece of real estate. This didn't justify the entire America to go over war over such an insignificant piece of real estate. Lincoln wanted to invade the South long before the attack on Fort Sumter.
Okay, 2-minute response to Louis Marinelli.
I would say that as an American citizen who's been living overseas for a number of years, I've seen the United States from afar. I like the view from the bleachers because I like to be separated from the nonsense that's happening in that country. And so I think that the professor speaks about the United States as important for people to see the United States, to live abroad, study abroad, and so on and so forth, as if that's going to improve their opinion of the United States. I think they'll do the opposite. I think that they'll see that the other countries in the world have more freedom in some respects, and that it's possible to live and enjoy life in another country that's not called the United States of America. But I digress. I was speaking earlier about impeachment and the frequency of impeachment. Well, I think that now, actually, 2021 and beyond, if you're an elected official and you don't get impeached, I don't think you're doing your job. Because that means at least you stood up to do something and to change something, and you got some people on the other side of the aisle pretty upset. And that's why they're going to try to impeach you. So there's this kind of saying out there that, you know, if you don't have any enemies or something to that effect, it means you didn't really stand up and do anything important. Well, I think that kind of applies to today in politics in America, unfortunately. The reality is that if you're not getting impeached in this day and age, then you probably didn't do anything important enough as a leader. And why are you running for office if you're not going to try to do something important? And if you're going to do something important, you're obviously going to rile up people's emotions and feelings, and you're going to get people upset. That's what's going to cause them in this day and age to try to impeach you, to remove you from office, because that's what impeachment really is now. It's a tool, a political tool to remove someone from office, not necessarily because of a crime or misdemeanors and so on and so forth. And that's an unfortunate reality, but we have to face the reality. And so, like I said, I just wanted to reiterate the point because I was talking about the frequency of impeachment, that if I were to be impeached in any office nowadays, running on the platform that I'm running on, which I know it's controversial, but I believe in my heart it's the right course of action, then I would wear that as a badge of honor.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go now to our next super difficult question, and then we'll have a nice softball question for everybody. Let me go to sharing the screen so that you can see the original information. So this is a poll from the Pew Research Center. Now, it's a few years old, But it does say that the partisan division, at least in 2017, after Trump was elected, was the worst it had been in 20 years or since 1994. So 1994 was about 2 decades ago. The Pew is one of the most reputable polling centers, and they're saying American political division, worst it's been in 2 decades. Some people may say, okay, well, that's because of Trump. All right. Here's another poll from the New York Times in 2016, also showing rising antipathy between the parties at a high over the last 2 decades. And they're also saying that the difference between people on politics is greater than the difference between how men and women think and how people from different religions and people from different racial backgrounds think. Politics is now the most polarizing, different indicator of how people think. Now, the University of Southern California, my alma mater, actually was able to do polling number going back to the Civil War. And what they found was this chart showing that from 1879 to 2015, political division was the worst in America it's ever been, right before Trump was elected, going right back to the beginning of the Civil War. Additionally, Foreign Affairs talked about, okay, well, Trump's gone and Biden is around. But what they're finding out is that allies of the United States are also reacting to its internal politics, and in particular to a deepening partisan divide that creates uncertainty about the future of U.S. foreign policy. Observing the polarized politics on display in the run-up to the 2020 U.S. presidential election, former Norwegian Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland noted that many European leaders no longer take for granted that they can trust U.S. even on basic things. Finally, this is a poll from the BBC, talking from the Pew Research Center, one of the most preeminent in the world, showing that the world has a 20-year low of opinion of the United States. Now, true, that was when Trump was around, but the question is, given that we have numbers showing that America is the most politically divided in 2 decades, and that at least one study showed it's the most politically divided since after the Civil War, and that Pew Research shows that America's image tanked to the worst levels in decades seen, and that foreign affairs magazines are talking about how European leaders question the ability of America to function not because of the 2016 election, but because of the 2020 election, and still question that after Biden was won, how can you say that America will come back together and be able to take its role on the world stage and basically put all the king's men and all the king's horses back together again? Because many of these polls are suggesting it's the worst it's ever been in American history, and world allies are questioning legitimately if America can actually do it. What would you say to Americans and world leaders to let them know, don't worry, everything's going to be fine and we'll come back together, even though the numbers seem to suggest that won't happen? Professor Wade, you are unmuted. Professor Wade, your response, sir.
Yes. Well, my response is that since the Civil War, we basically had conservative and liberal camps, and we've always taken the politicians that come from each, and sometimes they have better solutions to our problems, and they become the one that wins the election, and the other group shows its loyalty to the country by supporting these other the winning candidate. It's just Trump. He's a demagogue. He's a sore loser. And for some reason, he wants to divide America in order to fulfill his own greedy aspirations. And I think he will be dealt with through the court system, that he can't continue this demagoguery trying to keep us divided for his own a sense of for his own ambitions. So I think he will be dealt with very soon with the court system, and he'll go away. Now, someone very similar to Trump in the past was the 1964 election of Lyndon Johnson versus Goldwater. Goldwater represented a new conservative trend in America, and there was a great division between these two liberal versus conservative groups. But unlike Trump, when Goldwater conceded that he lost the election, he became loyal to the new administration of Johnson, and the country became unified again. So Trump is the one that has created this temporary division between the two groups of the country. We will become united again after he's dealt with by the court or by the internal mechanisms of the Republican Party to make him become more reconciliatory.
Okay, next up will be James. You have 2.5 minutes to respond in order to give equal time to all candidates.
Yes.
Professor Henry.
We're all talking about thinking outside the box, but sad to say, most of us don't even know we're in a box. If we're talking about left and right in the United States or left and right around the world, the American Solidarity Party wants to say, we're neither of those. We're neither of those. Case in point, immediate, timely case in point. Biden, who would bring people together, has actually ditched the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment was in place for decades. What it said is the federal government is not going to pay for abortions. That's over with, folks. The federal government is now paying for abortions. That's not bringing anybody together. Now, one thing that Biden and Trump have in common is that they both support the nuclear deterrence. The nuclear deterrence is supported as well by China. Big announcement this week. China's nuclear stockpiling is growing much more rapidly than anybody supposed. What we need to do is challenge this bogus left-right divide. Do so by calling attention to the primacy of the human person, the inviolability of human rights. Now, times have been even more divisive than they are now. Try Europe in the 1930s. There was a collapse after the World War II, the Second World War II, and the leading parties that brought about some sort of decent life were all members of the Christian democracy tradition. Christian democracy is a guiding spirit behind the United Nations. And here on my swag shirt, you can see maybe CD, American Solidarity Party. We're in the democracy, Christian democracy tradition, which managed to put Europe back together after the very worst of all wars.
Thank you. We will now go to Lewis. Lewis, in 2.5 minutes, how would you respond? What is it that you would say to Californians and world leaders to let them know that, hey, don't worry about the division being the worst in 100 years, in the last 20 years. We're going to get everything fixed. Your opinion, sir.
Well, I wouldn't give them that message. I wouldn't lie to their faces. That's one way to earn people's respect, is to tell them the truth. And that's, again, why I'm running for governor, to get California out of that mess that is rapidly approaching. It's already here, in fact, but it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse, and we need to have an exit plan for California, because the ship that is America is sinking, and California is either going to go down with that ship or to jettison from it. And I would just point out, I mean, there's talk of, if we arrest and put Trump in prison or something like that, that we can kind of gain respect for the world. Well, well, that's just going to put, for example, the professor loves America so much. It's going to put his beloved America, it's going to turn his beloved America into a country like, I don't know, Bolivia or Tajikistan or Mali or even his beloved South Africa, which, by the way, last week in South Africa, they ordered the arrest of their former president, Jacob Zuma, who was, by the way, a friend and colleague of Nelson Mandela. And I don't think that, when we're talking about these polls that show that the rest of the world is losing
Wait 1 second. Wait.
arresting his former president would be a good step in that direction.
Okay. Please continue. You have an additional minute. I just was not able to mute all the candidates. An additional minute to candidate Marinelli.
Okay. Well, I thought I had more time there. So, so I just want, if we're going to go around the world and say we're going to repair our relations and put faith in the United States again and tell them that things are back, there's tranquility in our society, I don't think that, arresting a former president is the right way to go, because that just shows that America has declined from, this lofty position that it's, tried to maintain in the world, the higher moral ground and so on and so forth. We've fallen into the level of Mali, Bolivia, Tajikistan, these other countries that arrest their former leaders. And even South Africa, like I was talking about. We keep talking about South Africa. So last week, South Africa ordered the arrest of its former president, Jacob Zuma, who was a colleague of Nelson Mandela. And so I don't think that, making America into one of these type of countries that after a president is defeated from office, that he gets arrested and put into jail, is going to, assure anyone in the world that the domestic tranquility in the United States is has been restored.
Thank you. Fuji Shura, let me unmute you. In 2.5 minutes, what would you say to convince Americans and Californians and foreign leaders, don't worry about the polls, we're going to come back together? How would you convince these people this?
I would tell them, and I do talk to different elected officials here in the U.S., in California, and overseas, that we are understanding how divided we are. Half America likes Trump, the other half doesn't like Trump. The other half likes Biden, the other half doesn't like Biden. We know that. We acknowledge it. And we're working hard, many of us, to get new people in elected office. And once we get new, younger elected people in office, this will change around. I am telling people that America is the comeback. We do things differently. And sometimes we make mistakes. But America is the greatest country in the world because we're the land of immigrants. We're not just Americans. We're also the land of immigrants. People from your country are going to be in our elected office. And that's why we're so great. Even today, for example, I just posted an article saying, why can't we have a Taiwanese American as an ambassador to China? We have so many talented people. We need to start doing it. Same thing for India, American Indian of descent, that we can make them ambassador to India, so on and so on. I do believe that we are exceptional, and that we're going to have exceptional, younger, newer candidates at the local, county, and state level in office, and that we are the land of invention, that we do create, and we do make mistakes, but I'm telling everybody in the world that we're going to get it right because we are the land of immigrants. Because we have the most largest population of immigrants, that's what America is all about at the end of the day. And I'm so proud to say that. And now we have to move forward. I'll keep these debates going. And yes, we are divided. And, I blame Trump for not inviting Hillary Clinton to the White House in 2016 to find ways to work together. And again, I blame Biden for not inviting Trump to the White House to work out how can we bring the United States together. So Biden and Trump, is there a difference? I guess not. They should have invited each other at least to the White House. That did not happen. Now, moving forward, we need now more than ever. And now we need new people in elected office that were never in elected office, like Louis Marinelli, like Professor Hannock and Professor Wade, and myself and others, okay? And I'm so excited that now if we are the most exceptional country because we have the most number of diverse immigrants here. Because we are an immigrant country in every facet, in every way, that's why we succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Fuji, I would just wanted to say that as the leader of California Independent Country, I'd be willing to appoint a Taiwanese Californian as the ambassador to the People's Republic of China.
To be fair, I'm going to give every candidate 30 seconds of additional response, starting with Frank, an additional 30 seconds of response to be fair.
Okay, yeah, just get back to my earlier statement that America's always been divided from the revolutionary period through the Civil War. We basically have a liberal side and a conservative side. It's just in the case of Trump, he broke the law in this insurrection in January the 6th, and he has to be dealt with. We're not countries like Bangladesh, for instance, that goes out and use provocation to jail members of their opposition just because of an incident with terrorism. We're a country of laws and court system. Now, getting back to South Africa, Zuma was charged with embezzling funds, irregularities. South Africa does not punish its political opponents like it was under the apartheid period. In Israel, you have Netanyahu. He's being pursued also because of illegal contributions. We're going after Trump because of his violation of the law, not because he's politically in opposition to us. So we basically have this balance where we show the conservatives against the liberals, and then we come together after every election with the exception of Trump. And he's just a rabble-rouser. He's in it for himself. He's trying to make money, and we're going to deal with him through the court system because of the laws that he broke.
Thank you. To be fair, an additional minute and 45 seconds to James Hennick, and then Fuji.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We're giving additional candidates time here now for about a 20-second statement I made to Mr. Fuji, and now we're adding a minute and 45 seconds to each candidate.
You gave a statement.
I can
Yes.
say what I said before, and it lasted about 20 seconds. It was an off-the-side comment. I don't know if we would need to add minutes and more than a minute of each candidate for that. I mean, 20 seconds is what you said in the beginning, wasn't it?
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I will handle the debate. Thank you very much. In order to be fair, I'm going to give fair time to everybody so that nobody can say they didn't get equal time. Professor Frank Henry Wade wanted to take longer, so I'm going to base it off that. We're going to eliminate the last question, handle this, go to closing statements. So, to be fair, I get a little bit confused, but let's just say a minute and a half to James, and then Fuji, an additional minute to Lewis, and then we will go to closing statements. James, minute and a half. Anything you'd like to say?
Process. I want to talk about process. We can do a better job thinking out of the box if we allow a few people who are out of the box to come into the box to talk to us about the nature of the box. That means proportional representation. We need to have proportional representation that will allow for voices from the third party to speak and actually be heard. My appreciation goes to New York City with the ranked order voting process that they used for the first time ever. I'm for it. What we need to do is maximize democracy, and under the current duopoly, it ain't happening. We got our paperwork to collect signatures that are due tomorrow. No, to do Tuesday. We got the okay to pick up the signatures on Friday. Whose idea was that?
Okay, minute and a half to Fuji Shura. and then a minute to
Yeah.
Marinelli, followed by closing statements.
Yeah, and I just want to echo the concern of the professor, Hannock, that the election is September 14th. Why? Because that's when parents and their kids are so busy getting back to school. So it's unfortunate that such a date was set to make it more difficult for everyday families, parents, mothers, and fathers to get out and vote when those first 2 weeks are so hectic for public schools and for parents. So it is a good concern. Duopoly does exist, and I just want to give a shout out and thank you to Yes California, because as far as I know, this organization is hosting the debates. This organization is letting the public know about the other candidate that the other networks, news media, is simply have willfully ignored. And so this is really great. And now is the time to get involved. And I continue to watch Yes California as a candidate, as an elected official, and also just to tell people, once again, get involved. Tell your people about this channel, that Yes California is doing an amazing job. And this is the first step to making our democracy a representative form of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. An additional minute to candidate Marinelli, followed by closing statements.
I'm not sure what this minute is supposed to be dedicated towards.
You could pass on the minute. You could comment on what the other candidate said. You could cover a topic you've already mentioned. It's yours to use.
I'm getting a minute to respond to the fact that I made a comment for 20 seconds, so I can continue. I don't know. I just think it's funny. I don't have anything to say, so let's move on.
Okay. We're going to go now to closing statements from each candidate. 2 minutes. This will be a hard 2 minutes. I will mute you. Please don't talk over your 2 minutes. We lost Professor Wade. I'll wait for him to come back. We'll go in the order from that. So next up will be Professor James Hannock for 2 minutes and only 2 minutes. What are your closing statements to the voters of California about the upcoming recall election and your candidacy?
Government serves as the topmost agency of the people. We need a government. We need something that coordinates our individual actions. But government needs to be judged. It needs to be judged in terms of whether it advances the common good or undercuts the common good. And I think in many respects today, our government fails to advance the common good. However, we have to talk about citizens, not just the government, but about citizens, because ultimately citizens constitute the government. There is a virtue that goes with being a good citizen. It's civic friendship. Were we to imagine our lives without friendship, we would imagine our lives to be horribly impoverished. Unless we develop an analogous kind of friendship, a friendship that's ordered towards our fellow citizens, unless we have the virtue of civic friendship, we won't be fit to elect any kind of government, and we won't be in a position to really pursue the common good. I think Aristotle stressed again and again and again, no government works without the appropriate virtues. The virtue we need to emphasize is the virtue of civic friendship.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Okay, next up will be Professor Wade. Professor Wade, are you there? 2 minute closing statement. Professor Wade.
Yes, I'm here.
2 minute.
Okay, my closing statements are, I really appreciate this debate. I think we've discussed a lot about America. Just to reiterate why we're running, principally because of the mistakes that Gavin Newsom has made. First of all, he did not have a TARP fund. He did not have a fund to help the countries that went bankrupt when the COVID-19 was first initiated, like George W. Bush. Secondly, he did not pay the gig EDD payments that supposedly they were stolen. He should have obtained a loan from the federal government to get the EDD unemployment payments made. And lastly, we're unprepared for the fires that are going to come. He lied and said we were prepared. We're not prepared for those fires. As far as the Americanism goes, as I stated, we are the envy of the world because of our financial opportunities, entrepreneurship, the stability of laws, and the predictability of our court system. So we continue to be the envy of the world. Immigrants want to come here because we have so much opportunity. And I hope to make California a better place by replacing Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Louis Marinelli, 2-minute closing statement. And make sure you're unmuted. You are unmuted. 2-minute closing.
Thank you. I'd first like to direct the audience to my 2 op-eds that I had published in the California Globe this past week. The first one discusses my proposal to institute and bring to California proportional representation to replace the one-party rule and a 2-party system with proportional representation in Sacramento. The second one talks about how Gavin Newsom is indeed, perhaps like Assemblyman Kevin Kiley says, the most corrupt California governor in history. Aside from that, I wanted to go through the pledges that I vowed to work through as governor. Beyond, of course, the idea of California independence, I have a number of items that I care about. So as governor, these are the things that I intend to work on. I want to create an independent, nonpartisan roadmap for independence panel to investigate California's options to peacefully and legally separate from the United States, determine the state's ability to govern itself as an independent country. I want to support legislation that awards California's electoral college votes on a proportional basis. I want to end the 2-party system by bringing proportional representation to Sacramento. I want to reduce the voting age to 16 and allow legal, non-citizen, tax-paying residents to vote in state, county, and municipal elections. I want to pass an Internet Bill of Rights that protects free speech, among other freedoms, by recognizing the internet as the public square of the 21st century. I want to open a California State Bank as a public banking option for residents and government alike. I want to reopen the California and Pacific Coast Stock Exchange and Index as an alternative to the New York Stock Exchange. I want to deregulate the gig economy to give California workers the ability to earn additional money to provide for themselves and their families. I want to establish a California resident repatriation program that offers businesses that have left California certain incentives to come back. Same thing for Native Californians who've left California. I want to create a California resident repatriation program. I want to expand paid maternity leave and job protection to a minimum of 18 months.
Thank you.
Go to CalixGovernor.com to see the rest of it.
Fuji Shiro, 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. My name is Fuji. Yes, my closing statement is this. I'm a pro-life candidate. I'm independent. I'm here to get the job done. The website is www.governor.life. I will make sure our schools remain open so our kids stay in school in person. I will fast-track charter schools so we have smaller classrooms for our high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. And yes, for once and all, I will make common sense approach laws such as keeping men and women bathrooms separate. It's that simple. We have to fix this. I've talked to a lot of parents. I hear you out there. What's happening is very serious. And now more than ever, we just need common sense resolution when it comes to public bathrooms and businesses. Men and women bathrooms, boys and girls, separate bathrooms. If there's a need for a non-binary bathroom, we'll make accommodations, of course. We'll make accommodations. But boys and girls, men and women bathrooms should be separate for public safety. At least for the kids. We've got to do it, please. Let's get it done. Also, we really will protect our immigrant families here. Many of our immigrant families have children that are born here. You are American-born children. Mom and dad, they're safe with me. They're safe with our election. Now's the time to think differently. I'm asking you for your vote. Fuji, FUJI, family, unity, justice, integrity. Visit my website, www.governor.life. I'm independent. I'm pro-life. I'm here to get the job done. And don't forget to visit all the candidates on my other site, www.candidate.contact. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful and blessed 4th of July. God bless America. And thank you for all the candidates running. You make this America great. All the immigrants, you're making this country great too. This 4th of July is for you too. You're part of one family in California. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask, do the candidates want an additional minute? We're a little bit ahead of time. Okay.
Let's
So-
do a minute in the bathroom. I'm telling you, as a candidate, that's a very important topic for a lot of people in California, for and against.
I will give an additional minute to each candidate to cover whatever they would like. Let's go to Wade. Professor Wade, we're going to do an
Yes.
additional
Well,
minute to
well,
minute and a
well,
half
thank
about whatever you'd like to
you.
say.
Professor Wade. Yes. Okay. Well, basically, I would like to state some of the things I would do as governor. Well, first of all, my 40 years of experience as an executive in corporations would come in handy, and with the many issues of the state, the current governor does not know how to govern. He has made profound mistakes in the state, and we're all suffering because of them. First of all, I would establish a new arbitration court system in which it would be like the small claims court. Issues of law, of labor and housing could be brought before a arbitration court in which you would not have to pay for a lawyer. I would increase the tax benefits for children, people rearing children. One of the reasons why we have abortions is because people cannot afford children. And I would make child care benefit costs a below the line deduction in the taxes, which means that if they don't have sufficient income to absorb the cost, they will be given a refund of the cost. The same with casualty and theft losses. The fires will be coming now in the state, and the casualty and theft losses, that is the tax deduction is not enough for the victims of these fires.
Sorry, I have places I got family events. So minute and a half. We're going to be a little bit stickler with the minute and a half. James, minute and a half. What would you like to say?
I'd like to say that this morning, whilst collecting signatures to get on the ballot, I talked to a neighbor across the street. She said to me, "No, I'm not going to sign." I said to her, knowing that she's a Democrat, "Well, you'll be able to vote against the recall, and then by voting for me and the American Solidarity Party, you'll be able to embarrass Democrats." She said, "That wouldn't be honest." I said, "Why?" And she said, "I've read your party platform and I don't agree with it." I said, "Thanks for being upfront." Now, what I would like everybody else to do is read the platform of the American Solidarity Party. I think many of you have more good sense than my neighbor, and having read the platform of the American Solidarity Party, you'll remember who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Marinelli, an additional minute and a half.
Yes, I just wanted to pick up where I left off because I have more things I want to do as governor of California. So as I left off, I was talking about, establishing a California business and resident repatriation programs to bring California residents and businesses who have left the state back to California, give them certain incentives to do so. I want to help business owners who've lost their businesses as a result of Gavin Newsom's lockdowns to get up and running again. I want to establish and expand paid maternity leave and job protection to a minimum of 18 months. I want to expand access to state-funded pre-K to all children from the age of 3. I want to expand sick paid leave to 7 days from 3. I want to establish a taxpayer-funded public health care option that provides non-elective healthcare services to all California residents as a public service through state-run health clinics and hospitals, while leaving extended plans and services to be covered by private health insurance. I oppose and will oppose mandatory vaccination and vaccine passports and discrimination against the unvaccinated. I will support efforts to restore the personal belief exemption for vaccines. I will enact comprehensive police reforms that increase the minimum qualifications and training necessary to become a police officer, to reduce the frequency of police brutality, and remove military-grade weapons from the civil police force. I will enact comprehensive criminal justice reforms that move away from cash bail, that focus our system on rehabilitation, and prepare our incarcerated residents for a new life after incarceration. That also reduce our prison population and that give judges more alternatives to incarceration for first-time nonviolent offenders. I want to decriminalize drug possession and redirect resources to the prosecution of drug traffickers. I want to legalize, regulate, and tax sex work and redirect resources to the prosecution of child sex traffickers. I want to build more infrastructure to collect, store, and transport water while not leaving our farmers behind. I want to build more infrastructure to create and transport clean power to end the rolling blackouts in our state. I want to establish a rental history score to replace the use of credit scores with rental applications. And lastly, I want to end predatory lending practices, including from payday loan lenders and tribal lenders in California. All of that information is available on my website at calixgovernor.com. And those are the things that I pledge to work on as governor beyond and above and beyond independence for California.
Thank you. To be fair, we're going to give an additional minute to all of the candidates. So we'll start with Frank is not here. James, you have an additional minute to say whatever you would like.
I said in my opening statement that I'm not a politician and I'm not a policy wonk. I do have ideas on a number of the current policies that are presented for debate. I'm certainly against the attitude of not in my backyard. I know people who are homeless. I know them personally. I speak with them personally. And I'm looking for a combined approach to homelessness. We need all sorts of good, aggressive social work. We need to have certain limits on where the homeless can be. We also need to have, and this is so obvious, more housing. Now, what a lot of debate that's going forward is going to do is to pit one solution against the other solution against the other solution, and as so often the case, we need to have a comprehensive, multifaceted approach to homelessness.
Thank you. Thank you. Frank, you have an additional minute. 1 minute. I'm going to be a stickler to say whatever you like starting now.
Well, thank you. Just in giving a comment about the homeless, as I said before, that there should be Gavin Newsom has fallen down in dealing with the homeless problem. There should be massive construction of cheap Quonset type huts that was used in World War II for the ship workers of Hunters Point, and in building ships in the San Francisco Bay. We should have a massive housing, cheap housing development in order to take care of the homeless problems. No one should be living on the streets in San Francisco. We should use the FEMA camps if necessary. This is like a war condition that should be solved. We can't allow a governor to be like Marie Antoinette and go to the French restaurant and pretend that these problems don't exist. There's some major problems that have not been addressed by Gavin Newsom, and he cannot be allowed to continue as a governor. And I can solve those problems because of my executive background and my ability to deal with problems.
Thank you. 1 minute response to Fuji Shiora. This will be the end of the debate.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, everybody, for attending this debate. I'm so privileged to be here as a candidate and elected official. And also, I want to thank Marcus of Yes California. Not too long ago, I was able to debate Louis Wang, a fellow Asian candidate, about the issues. It was the first time in American history that I know of we had two Asian Americans running for executive state office as governorship. We have a vigorous and civil debate. It's the first time ever, and that was because the initiative by Yes California to make it happen. And now, also, Doug Ose, another fellow candidate, I emailed you. You said you're willing to debate other candidates. As far as I know, there are only two known gubernatorial candidates who are currently elected officials, myself and Jeff Hewitt of Riverside. So I'm hoping does not make me a viable candidate. Doug Ose, I challenge you to a debate on Yes California on the important issues what all Californians want to hear: healthcare, job creation, immigration, the environment, and so many other things. Now's the time to come forward, Doug Ose. I'm challenging you because you said you want to debate all viable candidates. I'm one of the elected officials. I'm one of the candidates running for California governor. I'm also here to say, hey, let's do it on Yes California. Say yes to democracy. Say yes to a well-informed electorate. Say yes, California. Thank you, everybody, and God bless, and happy 4th of July.
Thank you. That concludes our debate. Thank you to all the candidates for being here. We'll be back Sunday at 1 p.m. Additionally, every candidate has the ability to challenge or ask any other candidate to a one-on-one debate about any topic. Thank you so much for all being here.
It's the California Recall Debate, hosted by Yes California.